We have managed services, cloud, consulting, and our advisory practice. Included in our offering is our HCM services, which is backed by 25 years of experience. We can help in a variety of ways, such as going digital, consulting, training, and managed services. Our HCM service is supported by our advisory practice. The goal with our advisory practice is to help customers use the right technology to solve their business challenges. Our solutions are based on 4 pillars: gaining efficiency, improving customer experience, increasing agility, and managing risk. We offer a number of products such as clarity, scannability, and document automation, and of course, mobility. And speaking of mobility, I would like to introduce Marta. She will now walk you through our new take on W-2s. So, hello, Marta.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marta DiDomenico, and I've been working with JD Edwards Human Capital Management for over 25 years. JD Edwards introduced employee self-service about 13 years ago, maybe 12, 14, something like that. And while the product offering has evolved, it has never included employee self-service W-2, or the ability for employees to access, view, and print their W-2s online through a mobile device. We at ERP Suites have developed that capability. Can you move to the next slide, please? With the W-2s online, you can save time and money by eliminating preparation costs, eliminating postage costs, eliminating labor costs. It also frees up your payroll employees' time. With year-end coming upon us and all of the tasks that are included in year-end, time savings is certainly a wonderful thing. We can also reduce dependency on third-party W-2 providers. The other thing is that we can guarantee that W-2s actually arrive on time. We all know that W-2s are due out by January 31st. And if we can save the time necessary to print W-2s, mail them, stuff them in the envelopes, mail them, we can certainly ensure that our W-2s arrive on time through our mobility apps. Can you please go to the next screen? We can also improve the employee experience. We have an intuitive app that requires little or no training. It's a very simple app where the employee can go look at their W-2s for this year as well as previous years. It's a user-friendly interface, very simple to use, where we can print or we can download PDFs anytime we want to. We can access current year and past year tax forms. Next slide, please. What we're seeing right here is a snapshot of what a W-2 looks like in standard JD Edwards. It's certainly functional, but not necessarily pretty. Our mobility app works with the data from year-end work files, so the process to produce W-2s will remain the same as usual. You'll need to install your year-end ESUs, you'll need to set up your year-end IDs, set up special handling codes and other parameters, and you'll need to build the work files just as usual. You can then reconcile your W-2 information against your payroll history. You can rerun your work files, make any changes that are necessary, and run those work files as many times as needed, just like you do now. Now, the difference is going to be in the printing and the mailing piece of that process. Instead of printing W-2s, potentially changing the alignment of forms, then stuffing those forms into envelopes, and finally mailing all the forms all before January 31st, your work is going to end when you're satisfied with your year-end work files, because that's where mobility picks up. We can open the mobility app as soon as you're ready, and then the employee can access W-2s through their mobile devices at any time. Additionally, the process of accessing previous year W-2s in JD Edwards is also not very pretty. Let's say that you have an employee that's looking for a previous year's W-2. They'll have to ask a payroll administrator to retrieve that W-2 and print it. Payroll admin will then have to go to that specific year and search for that employee's W-2 and make sure they have the correct form to print the W-2, and then they have to deliver it to the employee. I'm going to show you our online W-2 process. Next slide, please. With the mobile W-2 app, it's so much easier. The employee, can you pause that just for a second, Eric? Thanks. The employee goes into Mobility via their smartphone or any kind of other mobile device and logs in, and security is embedded. Okay, you can start now, please. So once they tap on that icon, they're going to see a list of available W-2s. Okay, can you stop it again? I need to talk. Okay, so you'll see that some employees, some employees have multiple W-2s. So when they work in multiple states, or maybe they have third-party sick pay, they're going to have more than one W-2. That's why we see one W-2 for 2017, two W-2s, three W-2s for 2018, and five W-2s for 2019. It looks like this employee worked in California, Pennsylvania, New York, Colorado, and then they have some Pennsylvania local. Let's tap on the last form shown. This is a W-2 for 2019. The first thing that we see, and can you stop the video again? The first thing that we see here is a consent form that is displayed. This is a consent form that's required by the IRS for each employee who wishes to receive their W-2 electronically. We have included that consent form here prior to viewing a W-2. That consent is then saved. Clicking on the confirm, we actually move to the W-2 form itself. So click on the consent and click on confirm. Now we see the actual W-2 form as a PDF ready to download or print because it's in the required IRS format. At the top right-hand corner of the screen, later we will see that you can download or print this form. And then scrolling through this PDF, we can see that all of the W-2 data is on the front of the document and all of the instructions are on the back of the document. Going to the top of the screen, you see the printer icon there. Clicking on that allows you to print this form. You can also save this form in a PDF format. There's the W-2 again. So when we're done with that, it takes us back to our list of W-2s. We are back to that list and we can go and look at another W-2. For this employee, as I said, they have 5 different W-2s for 2019. If I wanted to access another one, I could just go ahead and click on it. So you might ask the question, what if my employees don't have smartphones or tablets? Well, we've thought of that too. We also provide a website that is a companion to the mobile app that can also be accessed by the employee, and it works the same way as the mobility app. Next slide, please. So how does our mobile app transform W-2 delivery? Well, first, W-2 data is gathered from JD Edwards. There is no need to download anything to a third party. Next, there's no need to print W-2s and worry about the correct forms, stuff them and mail them. You will see cost savings from postage, the cost of forms, and printing costs, as well as labor costs, because now your payroll employees don't have to do all that extra work. Additionally, online delivery eliminates the chance that the W-2 statement will get lost, misdirected, or delayed during the delivery, or that it might get misplaced by the employee after the employer receives it, which brings up potential fraud. There's always the possibility of fraud when you're mailing out sensitive documents, especially W-2s with all that confidential information. Employees can view and print their W-2s anytime, multiple times. Let's say that you have an employee that wants to print their W-2s at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday and it's a full moon out. No problem. They can do that now. And the last thing is that W-2 statements will remain online for multiple years. So you don't have that scenario that I mentioned. No need to contact that payroll admin to get your W-2 from a few years ago. Next slide, please. So what is mobility? Mobility, in a nutshell, is the ability to access JD Edwards from your mobile device, whether it be a smartphone, an iPad, a tablet. With mobility, you can access JD Edwards without being tied to your computer. There are different types of mobility apps that we offer. Some of them are transactional, where you can enter information and save it in JD Edwards, and others are inquiry only. It's very convenient. Next slide, please. So what is a mobility micro app? We have mobility micro apps like our W2 that are expressly designed for our users to perform key JD Edwards functions, such as W2 retrieval or open enrollment. Next slide, please. This is a menu, and it is a list of micro apps that were purchased. So this particular employee, when they access mobility, they can access their pay stubs, their employee time entry, employee self-service, which contains other options, open enrollment, and W2 information. These are apps that we can provide, and there are more apps in the works. Next slide, please. Let's look at a sample pay stub. At the top of the screen, you can choose to see the pay stub details by pay period or year to date. You can also download a PDF by using that icon at the top right-hand side of the screen next to pay stub details. Employees can also see their year-to-date information if they tap on the year-to-date icon. Next slide, please. Speaking of pay stubs, I would like to introduce to you our first special guest, Steve McClure. Steve is the master of all things IT at White's Company in Des Moines, and he's going to speak about the pay stub implementation that we did at White's. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, thanks, Martha. All right. So the team asked me just to speak real quick on our experience with the pay stub viewer. So we have a very specific, I'll call it the foundational use case for the viewer in our world. We have a couple of, being in construction, we have a couple of labor crews that are very specialized in what they do, and they do a lot of travel to the various sites. Kind of one of those home office, never quite sure exactly where they are this month type of scenarios. And so in their case, in order to meet their union compliance requirements and along with some state requirements, we were overnighting pay stubs each week to wherever those teams were, which obviously they're not moving necessarily week for week, but they do move quite frequently, probably month to month. So we were overnighting pay stubs wherever they were and trying to keep up with where they were. So we've implemented the pay stub viewer as a way to get around those compliance requirements so that we're mailing, we're still required, we're mailing the paper stub to their home, but we're snail mailing that to their home, not overnight shipping it to where they are. And we're providing that compliance component through the pay stub viewer on whatever mobile device or web access that they have available to them through mobility, so that we're saving the labor and cost of shipping. They're getting the information in a timely manner, and everyone is staying happy who's above my pay grade, which is all I really care about.
So thank you, Steve. Here's the flow of our pay stub micro app. The first screen, when you click on pay stubs from the app menu, you'll see a list of available pay stubs. And that list can include everything that is available in JD Edwards payroll history. So the first screen shows you that list. Click on the pay stub that you want to review, and you'll see current period information in that second screenshot, including earnings, taxes, and deductions. If you want to see year-to-date information, tap on the year-end date icon at the top of the screen. The last image is a screenshot of the download, because of course we can download all of this information on desktop and we can print it from there. So that last screenshot just shows you what that summary looks like. Next slide, please, Eric. Another application that we have in mobility is time entry. Here's the time entry flow. First, the employee will see the list of dates where they can enter their time data. They can then click on the desired date range, and they can enter their time on a daily basis. A drop-down menu of pay types is provided because no employee knows that pay type 1 is regular pay and pay type 10 is overtime, right? And the final screen is a summary of time entered for that pay period. Here we can see that the employee worked a total of 41.5 hours, 8 hours each on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 9 hours on Thursday, and 8.5 hours on Friday. This is a simple, very easy to use app that employees can enter their time. Okay, let's go ahead and move to the next slide, please. This is our open enrollment app. This app is really very cool and near and dear to my heart. It allows employees to do everything that they can do in the standard employee self-service open enrollment, plus a lot more. We're going to go into detail about that a little bit later. But first, we have another special guest. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to introduce to you our second special guest, Mike Kelly. Mike is the VP of IT at IRX Contracting Group in Pennsylvania, and he's also the interim VP of HR. He's a really busy guy. We implemented our open enrollment micro app at IRX this year. Mike, can you say a few words about the app and the implementation?
Sure thing. Thanks, Martha. In fact, I am quite busy here lately, so thank you for that introduction. Yeah, so we last year had to do a paper enrollment after basically failing to be very efficient at the previous year's enrollment with a third party. And so this year we were looking for a better way to handle our open enrollment activities. It was a very manual process by which we had to collect all the information and manually input that data into E1, and then take all of that information and pull it back out and send it to carriers and so on. So we were looking for a much more streamlined process. We happened to be brainstorming with the ERP Suites one day, and they mentioned that that they can work with employee self-service. So looking into this, we found that they could develop us a solution to use open enrollment, the employee self-service capabilities of E1 for our open enrollment project. And in doing so, can streamline the process because employees then are selecting their enrollments directly into E1 and eliminating all of the manual steps of us gathering that information and putting it in manually in the home office. After some development efforts in going through, ERP Suites was very flexible with us in helping to develop this application and helped us work out the details for enrolling in both medical and dental, vision, as well as our life insurance, HSA, dealing with beneficiary information, dependent information. It's been very flexible and they've been very good at helping us get through that process. We successfully implemented this for open enrollment this year, and it was a very smooth process. Our employees liked it very much. It was very simple, easy to understand, and the workflow was quite smooth. We had very few errors, and those that did come up were generally due to user error, as you can imagine. So big thanks to ERP Suites for helping us with that.
Thank you so much, Mike. Eric, can you move to the next slide, please? So what we see here now is the partial flow of the open enrollment app. There are many more screens than this that allow us all kinds of flexibility for open enrollment. The first screenshot is the welcome screen. The text on this screen and other open enrollment screens are all customizable. First of all, this app works in both English and Spanish. So if you have a large contingent of employees who speak Spanish, they can access this app in their native language. Just tap on the language you want, and voila, the app is translated. So tapping on English, we see our screens and instructions in English. And tapping on Español, we see our instructions in Spanish. The second screenshot shows us our main open enrollment screen that contains all benefit categories to which the employee can enroll. When you tap on a benefit category such as dental, the app displays the plan options that are available, which is displayed in the third screenshot. Notice that the dental category is highlighted in green in the second screen. That means that a selection for dental insurance has already been made. At the top of the screen, you also see a cost per paycheck. The app is calculating the cost per paycheck as the employee goes along and selects their benefit options. If the option that they chose requires dependents or beneficiaries, such as medical benefits or dental benefits or vision benefits, you'll also see a dependent selection screen where you can add new dependents or edit existing dependents. And that is shown on screen 4, on the fourth screen on this page. The final screenshot shows us the benefit options chosen by the employee for next year, as well as their current benefits. So employees can view at a glance, side by side, what they have this year in terms of benefits and what they're electing in terms of benefits for next year, along with the associated costs. Of course, there's the ability to download that statement and email it. At the top right-hand corner, you'll see a download icon. Employees can go ahead and pick and choose whichever categories they want to enroll in any particular order, and they're not required to go through all of the steps. Within JD Edwards Standard Employee Self-Service Open Enrollment, you have to go through all the steps and then submit, whereas with our app, you don't have to do that, as that information is saved as you're going. If you want to start open enrollment and then you don't have your Social Security number or your dependent Social Security number on hand, no problem. You can always come back because the information is going to be saved. All of the benefits information that you've chosen, along with your associated dependent and beneficiary information, their address information, everything is saved. Everything in the open enrollment app follows the benefits rules that are set up within JD Benefits, and the data is also in JD Edwards. Please go to the next slide, Eric. So the next slide shows us employee self-service vacation information. We have looked at the transaction apps that are available within HCM, remembering that there are more in the works. Let's look at some of the inquiry-only products. With the inquiry-only products, we can review personal information details such as address, emergency contact, salary information, W-4 information, direct deposit accounts. All of that can be done remotely. The image that we see here is an employee's vacation balance. So that includes their beginning balance, their additional hours, hours taken, as well as hours available. Next slide, please. Now we see some more screenshots of our employee self-service. Tapping on address information, you'll see that first screen. You can see that the address information for our employee Don Henley is listed on this screen. The second screen shows us the emergency contacts. So we have tapped on the emergency contacts at the top of the screen, and it shows us emergency contacts for Don Henley. The next two screens show us dependent and beneficiary information. So if we tap on the dependents and beneficiary information from our menu, we see first Don Henley's dependents, Cynthia Henley and Jacob Henley, as well as their associated plans. So we see that Cynthia Henley is covered for dental, medical, and vision, and Jacob is covered for the same. And then on the fourth screen, we see beneficiaries. We have Cynthia and Jacob, both 50% beneficiaries of the life insurance plan. All of the rules that we have set up in JD Edwards for dependents and beneficiaries are followed using our mobility app. Next screen, please. Then we have some more self-service inquiries. Employees can see their compensation, both in terms of their annual salary and their hourly rate, as well as their pay frequency, just in case they forget, I guess. They can also see their direct deposit information, their job information, and their personal information. Again, these are apps that are only for inquiry. I also want to mention that we are developing a quote-unquote current enrollment app so that new hires or employees with life events can also use the mobility app for their benefits enrollment. That is in the works. I'm very excited about our mobility apps because they increase productivity and efficiency, and I'm especially excited about our W-2 online app because it's so easy and it's convenient to use as well as saving costs. W-2s are right around the corner, and with everything else that's going around in our world, plus our year-end tasks, this app makes W-2 access so much easier and more convenient. Please feel free to ask any questions at the end of the presentation. And back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Marta. So the question is, how does mobility support the bigger picture? We like to say enterprise mobility is no longer a nice to have. So many employees doing work on their cell phone, enterprise mobility is now a must-have. In the past, many would turn to the mobile apps provided by Oracle. However, that is no longer an option. This slide and the next one are provided directly from Oracle. So we should all be familiar with the safe harbor statement. We are working with Oracle and helping get the word out that the Oracle apps will be discontinued. They may already be discontinued right now. So if you go out to those app stores, you may not find them. But this is a recent change in Oracle direction, where in the past they provided these math-based applications. They are now going away. And instead, they're directing customers to definitely invest in AIS and orchestrations, and then any kind of third-party platform to build the front end or the interface. Certainly, ERP Suites Mobility follows that same methodology. By May of next year, all the math-based apps go to sustaining support. There will be no more bug fixes. So if you are using one of those applications, it'd be the right time now to think of an alternative. And if that's something that you need help with, obviously we can help. All right, so a couple frequently asked questions. So as you followed along, you might have thought of a few things. So here's some common questions. We'll do our best to answer them. And as Marta mentioned, if there's something else that you have a question about, feel free to post those in the Q&A section and we'll go ahead and answer them. So do users need a VPN client on their device? Good answer is no. VPN client is not required. Instead, behind the scenes, there is a secure connection between the ERP Suites cloud and your JD Edwards AIS server. What data is stored on the user's device? So only user preferences are stored. And user preferences are things such as a save password option, the UI appearance, so dark mode or just regular mode, and then enable biometric authentication option. As mentioned earlier from Marta, all interaction between mobility and JDE is performed in real time. So again, nothing is saved on the device and synced up later. All the interaction, the reading of information and the storing of data back to JD Edwards occurs in real time, and no customer data is cached within the app. Speaking of security, what security features are available? First and foremost, mobility requires authentication. So yes, you can download the application, but you still have to authenticate with a user ID and password, which is usually separate from JD Edwards. Users can also enable biometric authentication as well as multi-factor authentication. Of course, any communication between an employee and their device, and then the device and JD Edwards is performed over HTTP security protocol. And again, with all that interaction going on behind the scenes, JDE security is always honored. So if there's a certain level of access that a employee cannot access within the JD Edwards, like a specific application, that authentication is honored. What if we have employees who don't use JD Edwards? Well, first and foremost, since we're talking employee self-service applications, an employee will need a JD Edwards account. However, we do offer the ability to synchronize passwords between JD Edwards and Mobility to simplify the experience. What if I don't have Orchestrator Studio installed? For our W2 application, AIS and Orchestrator Studio both are required. There are a few micro applications where only AIS is required. So it's kind of on a case-by-case basis, but specific to our W2 application, AIS is required. So for W2, we like to say Mobility delivers a mobile-first experience, a digital transformation solution to productivity challenges, potential to measure your ROI, of course, a platform for future innovation. So if you're interested and would like to get started, there are 3 ways. You can call us to run with a Mobility W2 a demo, a personalized demo. We also offer our virtual workshops. So if you're interested in more holistic HCM strategy, we can work with you virtually to define that strategy. And then, of course, follow us on social media for any updates as it relates to our mobility product. So I definitely want to thank Martha today, as well as Steve and Mike for sharing their experiences. So with that,
Eric, I apologize.
Yeah.
I was just going to jump in with a couple of questions before you wrap up.
Sure. Sure.
First, we do have one question or clarification, I should say, for a demo of the web version of W2. I think Marta may have misspoke and represented what we shared as the mobile version, and I believe that was the desktop version, correct?
Yes, that was the desktop version. We felt for the demo, it kind of demoed better, showing the video of the desktop version. That's correct.
We also have another question about how the mobility apps are deployed.
Okay, so I'll try to read into that. So it kind of could be a long question or a long answer. Let's say the W2 application or some of the employee self-service. If there's orchestrations involved, we provide those orchestrations and first deliver them to you, the customer, obviously working with you to configure them because everybody's business is a little bit different. So we'll configure those orchestrations so that they're working properly for you. Once those orchestrations are in place, then we can deploy the mobile micro application. And it's once you have a user has downloaded the application, the mobility application from an app store, these micro applications are just turned on and off with a switch. So that's the biggest challenge is really just, or the biggest part of the whole process is really the orchestrations that are deployed and configured. After that, it's just turning on switches on what applications are displayed on an employee's dashboard within the mobility app.
Okay, a couple more technical questions. Let's see, what authenticators are supported and what tools release does the customer need to be on?
Okay, so that question is related to some of the security features. I mentioned earlier we offer multi-factor authentication. So one of those can be as simple as a PIN. So a user can set their own PIN And what that means is after they log into mobility, if they have the PIN enabled option, they are then challenged to enter that PIN. That is one form of multi-factor authentication. Another one is Google Authenticator. So it's a time-based password that works one time. So if you're familiar with Google Authenticator, a user would log in. They would then be prompted to enter usually a 6-digit code from Google Authenticator. Put that in. If it's valid by Google Authenticator, then they're allowed in. So that password changes, every 60 seconds or so. So that's why it's a time-based one-time password. So those are the two multi-factor authentication offerings. And then the tools release. So tools, we like to say anything with 9.2.3 and above. We do have a few customers running slightly older tools release versions of those, but we like to at least start with 9.2.3 and above for your tools release. You can run apps on 9.1 with your tools release of being 9.2 and greater. So again, we like to target 9.2.3 and above for tools release, but we do have a few that run older versions.
Okay, let's see. One just came in. What about termed employees and their access?
I will let Martha answer that one.
Okay, so for termed employees, if you decide to allow them to continue to access employee self-service, they could potentially have that access. Otherwise, they're going to have to call your payroll department and ask for the W-2s.
Okay, thank you. And I'm checking through here. And certainly if there are any follow-ups to these questions, please feel free to put those in as well. Let's see. Marta, you mentioned that the open enrollment app was bilingual, English and Spanish. Are there other languages that you support?
I'm going to have Eric support my answer. My answer is going to be yes, but Eric, can you confirm that?
That is correct. Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in follow-up to the question about some of the other apps, the reference to some of the other apps not requiring both AIS and Orchestrator, what other apps are there apps beyond HCM?
Yes, so by far our most popular app, I'll say, is our PO approval. That application it has a lot of use in the JD Edwards space, and of course we have a mobile version of PO approval. We also have applications around sales orders, so sales order inquiries, customers. So there's a great use case. I believe we have it on the line around for sales force management, allowing your remote employees the ability to see their customers, what sales orders are related to those customers, address information for those customers. I believe that's online. Those are some of the big ones, but shop floor. We also have some things around work orders, parts inquiry. All those are available within our application, and I believe if you go online, we might even have a link to some of those, a list of some of those kind of ready-made applications.
You can certainly follow up with Al for that information if you want to make sure you get a PDF. We also have on our YouTube channel, we have videos showcasing many of the apps that you saw today and a couple of the ones Eric just mentioned. So when we follow up to send you the recording today, we'll include those links so you can view those or share with your team if you're curious to learn a little bit more about them. Are there any other questions? Oh, sorry. Yes, there is another question. Are all users required to have a JDE sign-on to use the mobility app?
Yes. So they have a mobility account, and behind that mobility account is linked or associated with a JDE sign-in. And that's how we honor all JD Edwards security. So after they sign in and authenticate to mobility, they have a linked JD Edwards account, and any interaction with JD Edwards is performed to that JD Edwards account. So that's where all the security and is honored.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Well, again, I want to thank you on behalf of the team. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and certainly for taking any time away that it may have from the Quest Experience Week. We appreciate it. And again, follow up with Al or follow up with your salesperson, your ERP Suites account rep if you have any other questions or you'd like to see another demo. And again, we can also spend an hour just even doing that virtual whiteboard to help you think about what mobility solutions may be best, if not W2 or in addition to W2. So thanks so much, and everybody have a great day.